A warm welcome to all of our friends out there in the Bosshole Transformation Nation. This is your host, John Brewer. Welcome to another installment of the Bosshole Chronicles, and today I'm being joined by a new friend. This is somebody I met through a small networking group here in Columbus, Ohio, and her name is Kristen Schmitt. And Kristen is the founder of Thrive to Lead. It is a leadership team and executive coaching firm. She's been doing this work for almost a decade, and I love the description that she has on her profile that says she is a fiercely dedicated executive coach, and interestingly enough, really specializes in working with women at that director and above position, or that are moving into that position and hoping to show up in an authentic and genuine way in a leadership role. I think you'll love to hear about Kristen and how she got into this work. And actually, it came from an experience with a Bosshole. So it is my pleasure to introduce you to Kristen Schmitt. The Bosshole Chronicles are brought to you by Real Good Ventures, a talent optimization firm helping organizations diagnose their most critical people and execution issues with world-class analytics. Make sure to check out all the resources in the show notes and be sure to follow us and share your feedback. Enjoy today's episode. Kristen, it is so good to have you on the Bosshole Chronicles. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, John.
I just want to let our listeners know that you and I met through other parties. I mean, I love just the really great network that I'm experiencing here in Columbus, Ohio. I mean, I've only been here 3.5 years. You've been here much longer, and I've been honored to be connected with so many people that know you. And I think something happened. We just decided to grab a coffee one day, and it was a great conversation. And what really resulted from that is you got a great Bosshole story that actually has led to your current career, which I love. So I'm going to sit back and give you a chance to tell the Bosshole Transformation Nation about this particular Bosshole incident.
So my career path is a little bit different in that I fast tracked and was moved to the VP level at the age of 30.
Wow.
I was a 30-year-old woman kind of sitting around the table with a bunch of 50-year-old men, which was interesting in and of itself. And we could have a whole conversation about imposter syndrome and all of that good stuff. But
Yeah.
at any rate, while in that role, I saw a lot of success. And we often interviewed my peers and I would interview one another's candidates. And so I was interviewing this gentleman to actually move into a position that would be a peer move of mine. Fast forward several years, and I had taken a step back and for family reasons, and ended up in a position where I was reporting into him.
Okay.
So that was kind of interesting. But what was super interesting is he sort of developed selective memory. It was kind of had forgotten that, we had met in a previous life and what my past role had been. And it was as though I was sort of rookie, brand new manager. Which
Okay.
was the case. And I was, he treated me as such. And so there were multiple different things, but one thing that really stuck out was that he would create these friendly little competitions between his direct reports,
Okay.
which were competition can be a good thing, but without looking at like what the unintended consequences of these things would be, and of which there were many.
Okay.
So in one of these cases, we were recruiting sales leaders, salespeople, and we were using LinkedIn without any of the Navigator or the fancy tools. And in order to measure what we were doing with that, he would each week look to see how many LinkedIn profile reviews or profile views we had. Because
Okay.
his thought was, well, if we're recruiting on LinkedIn and reaching out to people, they're looking at our profiles, and therefore that must be the thing to measure.
Okay.
So I really kind of get a bee in my bonnet about if people remember what that means, but about, doing things that aren't going to drive behaviors that really make a difference or make things happen.
Right.
And so I said, this really isn't the way that you should do this. And what I would tell you is that every Tuesday and Thursday night, I go to my son's baseball games and I sit there and I just click on people's profiles so
Right.
that I can get my numbers up. Because that's the thing that's being measured.
Right.
Um,
Right.
so there was another example, John, that thought came up for me as we were talking. And that was in this industry, we would have a strategy meeting in typically March of every year with our business cycles.
Hmm.
And it was a great opportunity for people to, I mean, come up for air and reflect and look at the whole big picture in addition to the strategy. So it was kind of a breath of fresh air, if you will.
Yeah.
And I was told by my boss, we need to have this meeting on a Saturday because if we have it on a Saturday instead of a Friday, we're going to lose 10 sales calls per person. And and I said, "You know what? Let me explain to you why this is a really, really bad idea."
Yeah.
Because when you do that, not only so then all of these people they're going to come to the meeting on Saturday, but then they're going to take Monday off because they're tired and they're going to be angry with you.
Yeah. That's right.
And so you talk about unintended consequences, it's a double whammy. So
Oh
you're
my.
losing the same number of sales calls, but you also have everyone upset.
Uh, you know the irony of all this, Kristen. You were coaching him. You were. You didn't even realize that you were going to get into this profession of coaching, and you were already coaching him, and he couldn't pick up the thread. That's incredible. Go ahead.
Well, it was I don't wanna have he didn't wanna have the conversation the next level up,
Right. Right. Oh
which I
my gosh.
volunteered to do, by the way, but
Of course. No, 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 Kristen. We're not going to have you do that. Well, so okay. So I want to go back to something you said. So people could come up for air, which
yes.
which would suggest that, I mean, they're working, they're driving. Hey, we're going to come together. I mean, those are opportunities to build community. And because was it a fairly dispersed
Yeah,
team?
absolutely. It
Okay.
was I can come together with my peers, we can share what's working, what's not, and we can laugh.
Yes. Yes. Which apparently he couldn't do. So we're going to do this on Saturday. I'm telling you, Kristen, they are still out there. This is the fact that he could not see the downside, even with your counsel and input, is really astonishing. I know there are people listening right now, managers out there that are getting angry with me because this is exposing their approach. And this is why we do this program, is to help managers stay away from the boss hole zone. Go ahead. What were you going to
Well,
say?
and I was gonna say, to the, potential boss hole that doesn't want to be one,
Right.
a non-boss hole leader of mine said because I was early on very much a rule follower.
Okay.
He said, "You can't let keeping your job get in the way of doing your job."
Oh, I like that. Okay.
And so, if it's fear that you'll be chastised or reprimanded for doing something when you know it's the right thing,
Right.
that should cause you to pause.
Yep. That's good. That's great advice. Oh my gosh. All right. Well, thanks for that story. It just keeps getting better. Now I understand. Now I understand why you left.
Over time, sort of many of those things led me to a place where I didn't like the way that I was behaving under,
Okay.
under this sort of in within this culture. So I hired a coach at that point
Okay.
to help me respond as my best self and figure out how to be healthier and more effective in working at this environment. Which the beauty of that was ultimately this led me to say, wow, this has made such a transformative impact on me. This is what I want to do for
Oh,
others.
neat. That's a really cool story. That's a really cool story. To your current career path, right? You've been doing this, I mean, officially, it's a little over 10 years now. Is that
It'll
is
be it'll be a decade in January, yes.
Oh, that's a wonderful milestone. And just a reminder to our listeners, go into the show notes. You will see a link to Kristen and her business. And so, Kristen, I shared it in the intro, but just again, provide our listeners, you have a niche that you service relative to your coaching. Share that with our listeners, if you would, please.
Yes, so there are really, 2. The biggest one is I work with individual leaders, like, at the director-ish level. So a lot of women who they're seeing a lot of success, but it feels performative.
Okay.
So I'm doing X, Y, and Z because I'm supposed to be doing it, or I'm
All
I'm
right.
sitting in the meeting and I need to speak up enough, but not speak out too much because I'm afraid of how I'm going to be perceived. When really you need to be able to rip off the Band-Aid and say, okay, these are the people that I'm leading. This is
Hmm.
what they need from me as professionals and as humans in order to be successful. And my job is to provide that. And if you really dig down, that's not performative. You're really looking, okay, I'm a human trying to help a human be the best performer they can be.
Right.
What do we need to do that? And in
And
asking that
yeah.
question, you know, you figure it out.
Yeah, you gotta brush away all the pretense, all the crap, all of the, well, there's all the legacy stuff that still carries over. I mean, we're still experiencing a lot of that in the workplace. You talk about being the sole female sitting around a bunch of men that are 20 years your senior. I mean, I don't want to reinforce a cultural norm that seems to be more of a story than anything else, but let's face it, there's still carryover from some of this more antiquated way of looking at business, looking at people in business. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And you have to figure out how to navigate in that way.
Yes, that's
So
true. And that's what you do. So again, I think that is, I mean, I think that is wonderful. And I think because you have, for you, it sounds, Kristen, like this is very much a heartfelt approach. You experience this, you have firsthand knowledge of it, and you want to put yourself in a position to help other women in the business place or in the workplace understand how to navigate that, which is super cool.
yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, I like to think of it as the magic happens at the intersection of top performance and humanity.
Hmm. Yeah.
And to drive and to be human are not mutually exclusive.
That's that's true. That is true. Well, and our listeners know that in our world, and I've shared this with you in behavioral and cognitive data. I mean, the data that we use with our clients and in our leadership development work, everybody is wired uniquely. And when you can tap into that, it allows you to leverage those superpowers and those strengths in an appropriate way and not let those, any particular trait overemphasized can become a liability.
Absolutely.
And our job is to regulate that and have, well, we also talk about the emotional intelligence enough to be able to manage that within the workplace. But okay, so we'll get back to this in just one second. I want to go back to this boss hole. So he okay, did he actually really forget that? Yeah, I mean, like who you were and your level of expertise or your experience before you came back into the organization, or was that a little bit of a power move, authoritative thing?
It probably was. I mean, I'm speculating, but it was
I am
probably
too. I am too.
an authoritative power move. Yeah.
Okay, because it's like either you're super dense or, you just want to hold that authoritative level over Kristen because she had your job or she was doing this work before. Okay, fair enough. Because to me, we just released not too long ago an episode called The Heart of a Leader. And in our world, we talk about humanity. We want our clients to look at all the people in their organization, what we call the whole person model, and that's head, heart, and briefcase.
Yes.
Briefcase is the resume. The head, that's the behavioral cognitive stuff we measure with our tools. But the heart, that's a person's passion and their interests and their core values. And if you don't have a passion for developing other people, if you don't really want to do that, that's a heart issue. And to me, that speaks of a person who is maybe big on the outside, but very small on the inside, not willing to acknowledge, wow, Kristen's coming back. What a tremendous asset. And with all of her experience, and he wasted that. It sounds like I'm making up stories right now. I realize that, but it sounds like that's what he did.
And it's interesting because we talk a lot about trusting the people that we are working with or,
Yeah.
who they're responsible for. But it goes the other way too. And there's a there was an equation that I love. It's certainly not mine. David Maister, Charles Green, and Robert Galford, I think it is, in this book that they wrote. But it's this trust equation, and it says trust, and your listeners can look this up. But trust is equal to credibility, so you know your stuff,
Okay.
plus reliability, meaning you do what you say you're going to do. Plus, they use the word intimacy, but so that's sort of all the people stuff.
Right.
It divided by your emphasis on yourself. So
Mm,
if you're in it for you, that immediately detracts from the other three.
absolutely. Well, that's the egocentric versus the allocentric, whatever the, outward care. That totally makes sense. You know what that
Yeah.
makes me think of? It makes me think of Charles Feltman's book, The Thin Book of Trust, the four different types of trust. So I think what you're saying is that trust is not just this sort of, it's not just one thing. It
Right.
is made up of different things, which is what I think your formula is emphasizing. And if those components aren't there, it's going to be compromised for sure.
Yes. Yes. If any one of them are lacking.
But I'm going to give you credit because it's not lost on me that you were completely transparent and saying, look, this is a metric and you're checking our LinkedIn, connections. I'm sitting at my son's baseball game just doing this just to make my numbers. There are a lot of people that would not be that transparent and honest about that. So I give you credit for that. What was his reaction to that?
It was, it was very much kind of pushed to the side. I mean that,
Oh, okay.
but
Okay.
but you raise a really important point in that leadership is not leading just down. I mean,
Right.
if you're truly a leader, you want to make every person around you the best they can be.
Yes.
So my intent was not to say you're a boss hole. My intent was to say, eh, the behaviors that you're driving in your people are going to be counterproductive.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. So essentially, what the metrics you're establishing are creating these unintended consequences or behavior that's not going to get you where you think it's going to go. But and you were trying to help him. That's the part that I think is so honorable is you were trying to help him provide some guidance. I think part of that was probably stemming from the fact that, gosh, you used to be in that position and you understand how you could provide some guidance, and he kind of ignored it.
Yeah.
Um, so I'm going to tell a quick story, and our listeners have heard part of this. Years ago, I worked for a manager, super nice guy. This guy, he was the sort of person that you would love to have as a neighbor because if you were working on some project on your house or building a deck, he would come over, he would help you, he would bring a cooler of beer or soda, whatever. Horrible manager. And I was in the world of business development and sales, and he established this metric of you have to have on average 5 sales calls a day. I don't know where he got it. It was something antiquated from
Yep.
days and days ago. We're pulling all this legacy crap forward. I never hit that. I had 2 to 3, on average, 2 to 3 calls per day. And I had sales that were far exceeding anybody else in the organization. And I didn't try to, there was a point in time where I was fabricating. I mean, I would just sort of make a call, dial, nobody answered, but it was a call. And
Mhm.
I'm thinking, to your point, this is stupid. This is absolutely silly. And he would get so upset. He would be more upset about me not having an average of 5 calls a day than being pleased that I had these, much higher numbers than anybody else, and didn't ask the question, wow, what is a better way to do this? And it's the same thing that you experience, the
Right.
unintended consequences of a really bad metric.
Because, I mean, metrics are super important, don't get me wrong,
Sure. Oh,
but
yeah.
they're only important. I mean, it's the conversation that you have with the metrics.
Right.
It's
Right.
not it's not the metric, if someone is falling short on something, well, then we need to talk about why and how we help you get to where you need to be.
Right.
We don't just say, "I'm gonna slap your hand because you didn't make 5 calls yesterday."
Yeah. That makes me think of in our world, Kristen, we talk about where managers and supervisors should be measured are three key things. Everybody thinks it's just performance of themselves or the team, and it's not. There's three things. It's engagement, retention, and performance. Because you could have amazing performance, but have all kinds of turnover on your team, and it's just wiping away the profits that you're making. And if they're disengaged, you're not going to optimize that performance. And those three things are very measurable, but they're more, I think they're more substantive that for some reason, some organizations just think, well, all we got to do is really look at performance. But I think if you only look at performance, you are excusing a lot of really bad behavior or practices from managers and their teams, just like you talked about.
Yes. And
Yeah.
and I think, to that point, I mean, particularly in sales, performance is a lagging indicator. So
Yes.
people often they tend to say, "Okay, the numbers look great, so everything must be great." Well, if you're not retaining your talent and they're not engaged, eventually that's gonna hit the number.
Okay, so thank you to the boss hole you experienced because what it did is it led you to get a coach, which inspired you to start your own practice. And this is the work you're doing now. Before we hit record, you had shared, and like I said, go into the show notes, get Kristen's information. And if you are somebody that would love to talk to her about her capabilities as a coach, please reach out to her. But you said before we hit record that you were talking to another coach who had a Bosshole story recently that was a little
Yes.
bit of an echo of yours. Can you share a little bit of that with us?
Absolutely. So this coach is working with a professional. He's sort of later in his career.
Okay.
So home stretch, but not taking foot off the gas at all.
Sure. Sure.
And new manager came in, and I'm sure the intent of this new manager was actually to engage. So it was a okay, every Monday morning I'd like you to share what you're most proud of from last week
Hmm.
and what your goals are for this week and what you're going to do to achieve those. Okay, so fine. This person's role is very it's very repetitive. So the
Oh,
week
okay.
from week to
Okay.
week it's very same. So this person's answers tend to be very similar. And so the manager said to this person, I really would like to see some more variety in your answers. And also, I'd like you to be a little bit more elaborate. And so rather than looking at, okay, why am I doing this?
Right.
And is that being accomplished? It was, let's put this in a nice little bow so that it looks good.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're all over the place.
So, okay, I'm going to be completely transparent. I know what I thought of if I got that request because I'm kind of in that same part of my career. I mean, I love the work we do, totally fulfilled with our work, but I'm at the latter part of my career. If I had somebody say that, I would just take that and plug it into Grok or Chat GPT and say, "Give me something a little heartier, a little meatier, because this manager wants it." Which is exactly what you're talking about. That is not the
Right.
outcome that they had intended.
Right.
So is this still a lingering story? I mean, he resolved it? Has he figured out what he's going to do, or what?
I honestly don't know the answer to that. But
Oh,
I would get at some point it will backfire in some way.
of course, of course it will. Of course. Oh my gosh, that's so funny. Well, I appreciate that, and yeah, I know I'm not the only one who's thinking, oh, I'd figure out a way to make it a little heftier and not put any more work in. Wow. So the takeaway, Kristen, as a coach, let's say you have an opportunity and you do right now to speak to a lot of managers and supervisors that are out there listening and going, wow, am I doing that? I mean, am I guilty of that? What advice could you give them right now to say, okay, if you really want to show up and help your people with the right approach, what advice would you give them?
I think the biggest thing is having a regular dialogue with your people on how are we doing? As your manager, are you getting what you need? What else do you need from me?
Hmm.
And a lot of times, I mean, if my manager says that to me out of the blue, it's kind of like, uh-huh, okay, what's the real motive
But
here? But if you continue to ask that over time and you're creating an environment where you're giving one another feedback, that's how you get there.
right.
So, I mean, I made some I'll say dumb mistakes early on. You're not gonna hit every time, but it's
Sure.
important that you learn from it and also be able to say, "You know what? When I sent you guys that message, I really whiffed.
Yeah.
Um, so here was my intent or my objective. I don't think I came across in the right way.
Mm.
So let's talk about that.
So some humility,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
and the fact that, I am perfectly capable of making mistakes and I need to own them. I love that. I mean, I think that that's a humanity. That's an element of humanity that
right.
managers and supervisors need to show.
And in humility and, whether you wanna say charisma, whether you wanna say it's presence, whatever, again, those are not mutually exclusive.
Agreed. You make me think of a lot. You use the word trust, and I think that is something for anybody that's ever read or practiced any of the work by Patrick Lencioni and his organization, vulnerability based trust. That's where things start. We would say that it starts first with self awareness, and then you've got to build this vulnerability based trust. And as Kristen has shared, the formula from the book that you had referenced, or even if it's the thin book of trust, you have to really evaluate that and understand what is the level of trust I have with this individual to have a very transparent conversation and to ask that kind of
Yeah,
conversation. The other thing I think about is psychological safety. I mean, that is something that we have a diagnostic that measures psychological safety on a team. And I just read there's an article that came out because we're a certified partner of the Fearless Organization Scan that says psychological safety is not a feeling, it's a signal. And I
right,
love that because it's like if you have a strong degree of psychological safety and trust within a team or between a manager and a direct report, asking the question, you know, what else do you need from me, or how am I helping you the most, and even ask the question, how am I hindering you the most too,
right,
and somebody being able to say, you know what, this checking the number of LinkedIn contacts we have, I don't think it's resulting in the outcome that you had hoped.
right,
So let's talk about that. That could have turned out to be a completely different conversation had
right.
your manager just been more open and perhaps a little less intimidated. I don't know, or bigger on the inside as he was on the outside. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, and I mean, I think to that, if this person had said, "Listen, we don't have the resources to use recruiters, whatever. This is gonna be our main, source or funnel for candidates.
Right.
Let's talk about how to use this most effectively and what's working
Yep.
and what can get in the way of making it happen."
Yeah. So good. Well, Kristen, as we wrap this up, let me ask you, we're just after the first quarter in 2026. And what's got you excited about the rest of the year? Anything in particular that's really got you charged up?
It's just the next iteration of what I do. So I've been doing this for a little while now, but I think in order to keep bringing the highest value to my clients, I need to continue to reflect and try new things and continue
Hmm.
to get better and better at my craft.
Yeah.
And so I think that's what gets me up in the morning is what, I'm working with this great human being
Hmm.
and I can help them get there, and how can I help them get there better or faster or all those things. So looking at myself as a tool, and how can I continue to sharpen that so I can help good people get to where they want to be faster.
Nice. Well, for anybody out there that you think you're one of those people, go into the show notes, get Kristen's contact information, and I would encourage you to have a conversation with her. I know my conversations have been great, and I'm so glad that we've been connected through our network. And yeah, when that next thing happens and you got that inspiration, say, hey, let's go share it with the Bosshole Transformation Nation. We'd love to have you back.
Awesome. Thank
All
you so
right.
much for having me, John. This was great.
You bet. Absolutely, Kristen. And we will see you next time on the Bosshole Chronicles. Thanks very much for checking out this episode of the Bosshole Chronicles. It was so good to have you here. And if you have your own Bosshole story that you want to share with the Bosshole Transformation Nation, just reach out. You can email us at mystory@thebossholechronicles.com. Again, mystory@thebossholechronicles.com. We'll see you next time.